Hello, world, and welcome to Choices, Books, and Gifts, where you always have choices. Today's guest is one of my instructors. Her name is Mindy Frenkel, and she is a wonderful yoga instructor. Good morning, Mindy.
Hello there. How are you?
Good, good, good. So, what I'm going to do, folks, is I'm going to read a little bit about Mindy, so you guys know who I will be speaking with today. So, Mindy is a celebrated yoga teacher known for her inspirational teaching that incorporates challenging vinyasa flow with an emphasis on proper alignment. Mindy's passion for yoga philosophy is the hallmark of her teaching style. Students come from the yoga reflections, chanting, mantra, and meditation as much as for the physicality of her practice. For over 30 years, Mindy was a fitness instructor and personal trainer. She motivated many to change their bodies and change their lives. As her own life became more challenging, her interests in the mystical and the divine deepened. She began the study of yoga in 1995 and started teaching even before getting certified. Mindy's life has been profoundly influenced by her encounter with her guru and spiritual guide and continues her studies to deepen her life experience. That's nice. Good stuff. All right. So, what we're going to do is get to know Mindy a little bit better by asking her certain questions, and she'll tell us about her life as a yoga instructor. So, how did you first get into yoga? Can you share with us your journey? How did it all happen?
Yes. So I was going through a really difficult time in my life, and I'd reached like rock bottom in terms of what I was going to do. I was grasping for straws basically, and I decided I was going to start meditating. I didn't know what that was or what that looked like, but I at the time was teaching group fitness, and I had a little studio in my basement. So I went down with my boombox. You know what a boombox is. You have to be old to know a boombox.
I'm old.
I put a little candle on top of the boombox. I made it look like what I now would call an altar, but at that time I had no idea what that was. And I lie down on the ground every day for, I don't know, an hour or so, waiting for something to happen, which nothing really happens. But about a year into it, I heard yoga. So I called up my best friend and I said, let's go try a yoga class. So we ran around, found a studio not too far from where I live I live in Long Island. And that's where I took my first yoga class. And the first time I took the class, I actually didn't like it. It was too slow for me. I was a very fast person teaching crazy classes, the kind of fitness classes you'd be afraid to go to. And I left and I felt so good. I didn't know why I felt so good. Like inside, I felt good. I felt like everything was right in my life, which, by the way, it was far from it in the real life. And then I ran back again and again and again, like three, four times, and it happened each time. And I said to myself, something's happening in this room that's not like how I feel after teaching or taking any exercise class. Something's happening. I had no idea what I'd tapped my foot into. No idea. No idea the depth of it, but I knew it changed me. It made me feel safe inside, happy
Mhm.
inside, despite the fact that everything else in my life was really, really difficult. So I went to the gym where I worked and I said to the guy, could I teach yoga, the owner? And he said, if people come to your class, you could teach whatever you want. I think that's funny. Nowadays, I didn't know about being certified or not. So I started teaching yoga. I had quite a following. I was very good at remembering the sequencing that teacher taught. And one day, like maybe 4 months into my teaching, 5 months into it, one of the students who was an avid yoga person. In those days, it wasn't really 30 years ago. Yoga wasn't as popular, and she said, "Mindy, you're a great teacher, but you'd be even a better teacher if you got certified." And I thought, where do you get certified? Which is a funny question. Now anyone who's listening to this will be like, what do you mean? And you can get certified everywhere, including, which is ridiculous, on a computer. You can get certified online. But in those days, it wasn't that popular. So I went to the city and I started to investigate what schools were available. There were three. And the one that I wanted, Jivamukti Yoga, which is why I'm currently a Jivamukti Yoga teacher, wasn't offering that year. So I went back to the woman who asked me and I said, do you have any idea where I can get certified? And she recommended another really wonderful school, which is now called Ishta Yoga by Alan Finger. So I went there first and I got my first 500 hours. And then about 10 years later, I went and got my Jivanmukti yoga teacher training because it was that was really what spoke to me. And Alan's is a also great lineage-based yoga school, which I highly recommend to anyone who wants to become a yoga teacher, to be like authentically yoga teacher, that you get taught by people who have a lineage that you can trace back to an original teacher who created the actual form of yoga. That's just my opinion, of course.
Okay. Okay. What can you tell us a little bit about your style? What is it that speaks to you, and why do you teach your particular style?
So as I said, I was taking Jivanmukti yoga. I was going to their studio even during my first training, and even after my training, I was continuing taking classes. And the classes there incorporated what I feel are all the components of a true yoga class. First of all, they were 90 minutes long. Not
Mm,
have now. No one has the bandwidth for a long class like that. But truly, it's a 90-minute class. So it's chanting and meditation, a Dharma talk, like an inspirational talk, and then a very strong physical practice. At the time, I am still athletic, but I was like really into being into a strong physical practice. And they also gave great hands-on adjustments. So yeah, so all those components together. So that's where so I would say my style is Jivanmukti yoga, and try to stay true to the monthly focus that they still have, and to the teachings that I was taught.
great, great. Can you tell us what some of the physical and spiritual benefits of yoga are?
Uh, well, I'll try to be brief. This physical benefits. Well, you feel physically better when you're moving your body and stretching your body and remembering to breathe, which I would say is the hallmark of a yoga class. Is that if you're in a teacher, you have a good teacher with a solid background, they will continually remind you, inhale and exhale. That was another thing Jivamukti did. If you notice the classes you take with me, I always say inhale, exhale through the entire, so it reminds you to breathe. And I think that's part of the reason why you feel so good after a class, because think about it, all day long, we're not remembering to breathe. The body breathes for you all day long. Do you ever think about it during the day?
No,
Right.
no, no.
And then you can't breathe. And then you're thinking about, how can I breathe again? But we don't really take in true deep diaphragmatic breathing, which is what gives the body a feeling of health, good health. Where you can actually get the breath into the lungs, not just into the chest or into the belly, but actually a full breath that expands the whole diaphragm. And that is, you just do one and you feel amazing. So think about it. You're doing it for an hour minimum in
Yeah.
a. So I think that's so that's one of the physical benefits. And of course, stretching your muscles and getting strength, because yoga is not just about stretching. It's a balance actually between strength and stretching. And then, mental benefits. For me, are you asking about for me? You're asking about for other people, or both?
Well, for you, you're the one we're interviewing. So for you, what is the spiritual side of yoga for you and for the people?
What does it give you? You asked me what benefits, right? So spiritual benefits. It connects you to your essential self. What does that mean to someone who doesn't practice yoga? The part of you that's inside, the part of you that animates you, the part of you that breathes you, that part of you that's looking out of your eyes, that's hearing with your ears, that's speaking out of your mouth, your soul, for lack of a better word. Um, you could say higher consciousness. And it doesn't happen in a minute. And you don't even, it's a process.
Okay.
And who are really serious about yoga, eventually, when they practice over and over again, will start to ask the important questions like, who am I? Why am I here? What's my life purpose? So it brings a sense of awareness, which is something you can, whether you're spiritual or not, being awake and aware is just a way to live a better, more authentic life, right? So that's just really basic, but it connects you to who you really are. Besides,
Good, good. Is yoga and meditation separate, and do you have a meditation that you do as well as yoga?
So yoga is a practice, and the practices are many. So some of the yoga practices are just asana or just physical exercise. There's a practice called pranayama, which is breathing practices. That's its own practice. There's practice of just chanting, bhakti yoga, and they're not doing any physical. They're just chanting. So they're all valid practices. So yoga is a practice, and it's also the end result. So yoga as an end result is experiencing your true nature, not thinking about it, not understanding it from a book, not reading about how do I know myself. I mean, yes, reading your books is great, and attending lectures is great, but yoga as is an experience of knowing who you are.
Yes, I love the way you're explaining it, because even for myself, who takes your classes, to understand the depth of it is really, really terrific. So, say someone, what would you advise someone who's just getting started? What would they have to overcome? Some of their obstacles.
Oh,
What would they need to do? Especially they've never ever done it before. And what style would you recommend even for someone who's just starting? Is vinyasa too difficult, or is it fine, or
that's a great question. It depends who's asking the question. There's not
okay.
one. So if somebody who is who, let's say like me, I was coming from the gym, I had a very good awareness of my body, right? So that wasn't an issue for me. So I would probably ask them, what are you looking for? Do you want something to relax you? Do you want something invigorate you? What are you looking for in terms of yoga? And I would give them options. So yes, you could go to a vinyasa class. I would definitely put them in a yoga studio. We're very lucky that Equinox has yoga studios within the gym. So it doesn't feel like you're in a gym at all when you're in the yoga studio. There's really, but other gyms I might not be so keen on that. Even though any yoga is better than no yoga, I would say. And then if there's someone who's very deconditioned or older, not that older is deconditioned, I don't mean to say it that way, but depending on their ability to move, I might recommend a gentle class or a restorative yoga class, which I actually went to this morning and love, which is, have you ever been to a restorative yoga class?
I have, yes, at
Yeah,
our gym too.
yeah, it's amazing. And that
Love.
really, anyone can do that. Chair yoga, depending if someone has something like they're really dealing with or an injury, chair yoga is a great thing to, to try. And they're all great, each of them, whether it's a vinyasa practice or a chair practice or a gentle, as long as it's what that person needs. And as they get better, they may or may not move on to some other form of yoga.
Gotcha. Are there, like, I know there are challenges, because I mean, I take yoga, but I have a lot of people that say I can't do the moves, or it's too painful, or this or that. Is that some of the obstacles? What are some of the obstacles? And I know for me, just sticking with it, because even in your class, there are some positions I'm not completely comfortable doing, and I'll do something else. So you'll give me something else to do instead of that particular exercise, which is one of the reasons why I love your class so much.
Okay, so again, the obstacles. I would love that one person who has an issue to talk to me, because lots of times I think the problem is that no one tells their teacher. I have this issue, like before class, you go over to the teacher, this is hard for me. I may not be able to do X, Y, and Z. So the teacher can help you before class starts to
Right.
but someone that's having difficulty or their obstacles, yes, physically not being able to do something, or thinking they're not able to do something, or they're too old to do something, I would tell them to get a yoga private with a teacher. And this way you can actually get the yoga you need for yourself. You can get better at it, and then you can move into a more formal class, like a vinyasa class or whatever. Some people are just uncomfortable in front of other people, and that's the biggest obstacle is they don't want to look like an idiot, right, in a class that they're
Yeah.
doing it. And no one should ever feel that way, but people do feel that way. And
Mhm.
I come to class. Showing up is the first step. If you need some help, address the teacher at the beginning of class. If it's not a crowded class, the teacher might be able to help that student a lot. If it's a very crowded class, maybe if that person likes the teacher, request a private once or twice, or you might even do it for a year. So you have you develop confidence, you're physically able to do things. Like, for example, somebody who, I don't know who's listening and how familiar they are with class, but down dog is pretty much the space where you start moving forward and back from. A lot of people have trouble moving their feet toward their foot to the hand to stand up. And so there's something very simple to do that would help someone who can't do it, and then eventually they'll be able to do it. So I just say ask your teacher for help, or get a private yoga session with someone.
Yeah, and you always do that. Even before the class, you'll ask, is there anyone with an injury or some other difficulty? So I like the way you go over that as well. Do you do any private or yoga of your own?
Of
Like, is
course.
there, you do. So if somebody wanted to,
Oh, you asked.
reach out and take classes from you.
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah, I do yoga privates. I do small classes, like a few people you want to do like a small group class. I've been doing that since pretty much since I started.
Okay.
Because
Is there any way you want to reach out to you? If so, a
oh,
website or something?
I I can give you my website, or they can reach out
Okay.
to me. They can sign up for my newsletter. That's a great way to connect with me. MindyFrenkel.com, and they can sign up there. Reach out to me from there, or I can also give you my email, and they can reach out.
Beautiful, beautiful. How about, I know so much of life today deals with so much stress and anxiety. I mean, the whole world is stressed and filled with anxiety. What can yoga help with that?
Most definitely. The great thing about a yoga class, any class, is the student will get tools. They may not realize they're being given tools, but they are. So breathing is one tool. Paying attention, listening is another tool. Meditation is another tool. And so these tools you can use, and that's what really helps you in life. The tools that you get. Going to a class can be very, for me in the beginning, as I told you, I was going just to a vinyasa yoga class. I had no idea what I tapped my foot into, and I felt good just from going. I didn't know what I was receiving. All I knew was that after we got up from Shavasana, I was a different person than the one when I walked into the room. I would literally drive 1,000 miles an hour just to be in the room. It became my temple, if you want to call it, sanctuary,
Yeah,
where I felt a sense of safety. I don't know how to even put it, safety in myself. And that is what's better than that, to
yeah,
feel in
yeah,
your
absolutely.
safe self, where you feel okay. It's with anxiety in the world, and that's what I always tell people. I do tell people to meditate. Meditation is key, and it is
Right.
something I do every day, sometimes more than once a day.
That's great. That's great. I know in your class, one of the reasons why I love it so much, which I've done a lot of yoga over the years, but in your particular class, you disperse so much wisdom during the class, and you talk about, just regular life stuff, but it comes out so wonderfully. Where does that all come from? And how important is that
Mm.
while you're instructing us? Because I find that to be one of the most important things to me while taking your class. I love to hear what wisdom you impose on us.
So that makes me laugh. I'll tell you why. When I first started to take, I was doing the first teacher training. There was a teacher who I took, and at the time we were taught with no music in the background, not Jivamukti, this other style that I did, Ishta Yoga. And the teacher literally, she wove in something like from the beginning to the end, like a story, and it was imparted something very important to understand. And I remember thinking, I want to be able to do that, but just I asked you asked me that question, I asked myself that question: how can I ever do that? And I realized that what for me, yoga and everything that's happened so far, I have in terms of challenges that I've learned from, that I've been able to meet, I like to share some of it, because how else can you help people if you don't share from your own stories? And I had plenty of stories, but I'm not saying I'm done learning. I'm far from done learning. But as we continue to make mistakes, and as we make our mistakes into triumphs, and we're able to overcome things, we can walk people through things. And so yoga and all of the precepts in yoga and the different philosophies from different teachers that I've both have in my life, and also that I have from reading and studying with them in other ways has made such an impact on my life that I like to share it. So we have a focus of the month every month, and a lot of times I'll tap into that focus and how it's relating to what's happening in my life. So that's where it comes from. It comes from suffering, life suffering. But who doesn't? I say that in jest and seriously too. Like, who
Right.
doesn't? But the great thing about yoga is we learn that you don't really have to suffer. Having experiencing pain and overcoming it, suffering is a mindset. So we learn that we have choices. And I love that your store is called Choices. I just think it's the best name ever because people don't understand that you always have a choice how you want to see something. Always. And it's, you can be right or you could be happy. You can choose to see something in a favorable way or in an unfavorable way. And our job is to figure out, well, do I want to be happy? Because if I want to be happy, I have to find a different way of looking at that. And we always have a
Right.
choice, right?
Yep.
Don't you?
Yep. And you do it. You teach it so well. The I have something like the principles of yoga in daily life. Like, how do we inject those principles into our lives every day, and how do they help us live each day?
So I think if you tackled all the principles, well, there's eight limbs of yoga, and this would be a whole other class. So I'm not going to go into all of them, but basically, you start to study. You can study with a teacher. I think that's very. If you're serious about understanding this, then you could start to read the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali, which is one of the main books on yoga. But sometimes it's hard to understand without having somebody help you. So I often mentor yoga teachers also who want to study more deeply about the principles and how to use them in their life, and that's really how I help people in that respect. I don't usually it's a yoga teacher that reaches out to me about that than just someone who's practicing. Hey, I want to deepen my practice. What do I do? And
Right.
if they're practicing for a long time, I'll recommend the Yoga Sutra because that's the first step. And then what I recommend? I would tell them read one verse, read the explanation, and then sit and meditate for 5 minutes and close your eyes and just for let's say 5 minutes a day in silence. Sit after you read it, sit quietly, and what happens is it lands. Certain things, especially yoga. Yoga cannot be understood by reading a book. Yoga has to land, and it meets the student where the student is. So if you're a beginner student, it'll meet you in a place that you can understand it. As you advance, it'll continue meeting you as you advance. That's what's so great about it. It's so deep. It keeps going and going. You never get to the end.
Does a yoga teacher have a yoga teacher? Do
Yes,
you have a teacher?
she has many teachers, many, many. Not to be truthful at this point, everyone's my teacher, but I do have a teacher, yes, and a specific teacher, and of course my teachers at Jivamukti who continue to be my teachers as well, even though they're no longer teaching. But they're still my teachers, meaning I still study the things that they've taught me. I'm always perpetually a student because you're never there. Even the teachers have teachers always.
And you are the person you are today, I would say, because of the yoga you've encountered throughout your life.
I don't know what the person is today, but this person is still growing. I'm not
Yeah,
there yet, but
I know. Me too. Me too.
I try to keep going, keep growing, and I still make tons of mistakes and big ones and small ones, but they're not mistakes; they're lessons, right? We're
Right.
learning,
Right. I
reaching
like that. They're
forward.
definitely lessons. They're
Right.
definitely lessons. We wake up and we learn each and every day.
Yep.
Is there anything that you'd like to say before we end the program?
I'll tell you one thing. You said, give me words of wisdom. Well, these are not the words of these are my words. These are my teacher's words. Uh, my teacher's name is Manorma. She said, everybody spends time with people, makes time to date friends, husbands, boyfriends. We spend a lot of time dating other people, but we spend no time dating ourselves. And she doesn't mean going to get a manicure or going to the movies or taking your own vacation with our own minds, us with our own minds. And she says, everybody that's in your life that you spend time with will come and go, but you are the only one going all the way with you. So you better know yourself. And that's always stuck with me, how important it is to be able to be with yourself, higher self. And yes, your your annoying personality self, that part too. You can't avoid that. You have to go through that, through your pain, through your suffering, through all of the things to get to who you are. And I know you've done work on yourself as well, so I know you understand what I'm saying, um,
Oh,
right? Anyway,
believe me, I do.
yes,
Believe me, I do. And it's a constant, as I say, I wake up each day and I practice different principles in my life because there are so many things I'd love to still change about myself. So it's I don't want to say it's a struggle. It's like you said, a practice. And the wisdom you give us is just wonderful. And I thank you so much for being with us. And I'll see you in class this Thursday. And
better.
I hope to see you again on our podcast. You were wonderful. And thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This is my favorite subject. Yoga is my favorite subject. So I love talking about it. Thank you for having
Excellent. All righty. Bye.
me. Bye. Bye bye. Namaste.
Namaste.